Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, first this morning, leading Brexiteers say they're completely relaxed about the way Theresa May handled yesterday evening's interview on the London radio station, LBC. Nevertheless, her refusal to say whether she would vote Remain, as she did in 2016, or now vote Leave if there were another referendum on the country's membership of the EU, well, it has raised some eyebrows. Here she is talking to LBC's Ian Dell.
I don't answer hypothetical questions, but what I
have... It's a pretty easy answer. I would be able to answer that. I know I would vote in exactly the same way.
Well, I voted Remain. I voted Remain for good reasons at the time, but circumstances move on. I mean, I think the important thing now is that I think we should all be focused on delivering Brexit.
Absolutely.
And delivering the best deal. But you were asking me to say, how would I vote in a vote now against a different background, a different international background, a different economic background,
but you can't
potentially.
Tell me that you would vote Leave now. I mean, Jeremy Hunt, when I interviewed him at the conference, he said he voted Remain in the referendum. He was the chief advocate of Remain. He said now he would vote for Brexit because he says George Osborne's economic predictions did not come true, and he said that he was fed up with the belligerent attitude of the European Commission. Now, if he says he could change his mind, I don't quite understand why you can't, seeing as you are Prime Minister leading us into Brexit.
Yes, and I'm Prime Minister ensuring that I'm going to deliver Brexit for the British people.
But you can't tell me that you would now vote Leave in a referendum.
Because I think, Ian, when you come, I could sit here and I could say, oh, I'd still vote Remain or I'd vote Leave, just to give you an answer to that question. I'm being open and honest with you. What I did last time round was I looked at everything and came to a judgment, and I'd do exactly the same this time round. But we're not having another referendum, and that's absolutely crucial. We're not having another referendum.
There we are, we're not having another referendum. Liz Truss, you voted to Remain, but you now said you would vote to Leave. Why can't the Prime Minister say that?
Well, the reason I've said that is that I voted to Remain because I was concerned about the economy. But what we've seen since the Brexit vote is our economy has done well. We've attracted new overseas investment. We haven't seen the dire predictions come to pass. And what we're seeing is new opportunities to trade with the rest of the world. I think that's exciting.
So were you wrong now to vote Remain, do you think?
Well, I think that what's happened is all of us had to make a judgment on what we thought the future would look like. And I made a judgment thinking that it would be bad for the economy. Since we've left, it's been more positive. So the facts have changed and I've changed my mind. And
what it means is that the department of which you are now number 2, its forecasts were wrong.
And many forecasts are wrong, aren't they?
But that's the Treasury. Its forecasts were wrong.
Forecasts are always
But you believed them at the time.
Well,
and you voted to Remain, and they were wrong. And now you're saying you would vote to Leave.
If you go back in history and you look at forecasts that are made, of course, no forecast is completely accurate.
Well,
no one has a crystal ball, Andrew.
Completely wrong, was it not?
No one has a crystal ball where they can predict the future.
But you
what
believed
I'm saying, I believed that there would be major economic problems. Those haven't come to pass.
So far.
So therefore, I think, and I've also seen the opportunities. I think the other thing is that it was a big moment on June the 23rd when British people voted to leave. And it was an expression about what kind of country we wanted to be. And I think that has changed the debate in this country as well.
Shouldn't you have a word with your boss then? Because you're saying the economy's turned out to be much better than you feared it would be and the Treasury predicted. But your boss goes on and on about the uncertainty. He still thinks there's huge question marks.
Well, there is uncertainty, and that's why we're seeking to get a good deal as soon as possible. But the best way we're going to do that, Andrew, is get on with the job, not have a second referendum and reopen the uncertainty
Can't you cheer him up a bit?
He's a very happy man.
No, he's not.
He's often
always looks
cheerful
miserable
when he's in the Treasury, I can tell you.
Really? Why? Why is he not cheerful when he's out of the Treasury?
He is cheerful. He's written a very positive article today about our preparations for Brexit, our preparations for all eventualities.
That's positive, is it?
Yes.
Very well.
It shows, Andrew, it shows that we are preparing as a government for all possibilities.
What preparations are you doing?
So we are funding departments to make preparations for different scenarios that could take place,
Right.
one of which is no deal.
No,
and
I
one
know,
of
but what
which
actual
is-
preparations are you doing then?
So we have plans in place that take us right through to April 2019, looking at what the possible scenarios are,
Right.
and making sure that we're able to spend money to deal with those contingencies so we're prepared for any eventuality.
But what are the actual preparations?
Well, I could take various examples, so making sure that our borders and ports are ready,
But you're
making
not
sure that
spending,
we've got
you're
the
not
right
spending money
customs
on technology on the
software
ports,
in
are you?
place.
You are?
Well, what we are doing
You're not
is,
building a lorry park in Kent, are you?
well, we're going to make sure that anything we need to do can be done on time. It's critical path, Andrew. You've got to make sure that you're hiring the right people, you're putting the right plans in place, so you're able to put in any physical infrastructure that you would need.
So
in April.
are you already buying the software that would be necessary for trade if we crash out?
We already have that software.
Really?
We've got software with the rest of the world. We trade with the rest of the world on a regular basis. Of course we've got that software.
Yeah, but we don't have complicated supply chains with the rest of the world. We do with the EU. Do we have the software to deal with that now if we crash out?
We have people in HMRC, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, having those discussions with people who do that trade.
How can they do it when the Chancellor says he's not going to give them any money? How can they have that software?
Andrew, we've already spent £250 million on those preparations. And I will be making sure, as the Chancellor will be, that any preparations that need to be done for a no-deal scenario or any other scenario get the proper funding.
Jenny Chapman, you voted to remain, I think.
I did, yes.
Am I right in guessing you would still vote to remain?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. I thought you might, because when we saw...
Sorry to be so predictable.
Well, you know.
What's the answer?
When I watched the Prime Minister just now, you can't help but say to yourself, what would I do were we having a referendum today? I'm glad we're not. And all I would say, really, is that I could vote for Brexit. I could vote to leave if it was well managed, well negotiated, if it's a Brexit that protects jobs in the economy, then I could vote for that.
But you wouldn't know that until you voted.
Well, you wouldn't. But
so how would you? You've had a lot of time. You've had 24 hours to think about this. How would you vote?
I haven't been thinking about just that for the last 24 hours. But the trouble with where we are at the moment is the government is not making a good job of the Brexit negotiations.
That's another matter. That may or it may not be. I'm still trying to work out now. Because I tell you what a lot of people think is that people like you in the Labour Party.
People like me?
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. It's part of the mainstream of the Labour Party, pro-European, voted Remain, part of Labour's pro-Europe tradition. You would vote to remain, which is why they don't think in a Brexit negotiation your heart would really be in it.
I know that people think that people who voted Remain in the referendum are still wedded to that position and want to block it, but that isn't the case. My constituents voted to leave, and on the morning of June the 24th, I had to do a lot of hard thinking about this, and I did that very, very carefully and seriously, and I've listened hard to what my constituents have said, and I think most of my colleagues in the same position as me have done that too. And what that leads us to is, as we've kept saying, we mean it, and I know that you might not believe it, but we absolutely mean it, that we do accept the outcome of the referendum.
All right, given
so that means
if you've come to terms with that,
we want to deliver a Brexit that actually works for my constituents.
Well, let me come on to that. So, given we have the negotiations and then a transition period.
Yes.
At the end of that transition period, in what way would your vision of our relationship with Europe differ from the government's aim?
We want a close relationship with Europe.
So does the government.
Well, they say that. You see, the difference is we mean it and we think we could achieve it. But
in aspiration, there's no difference. In what way would it differ?
Well, aspiration's fine, but you've got to be able to deliver on that.
So in what way would it differ under Labour as compared to if the Conservatives continue to do the negotiations and the transition?
We would be prioritising jobs in the economy over everything. And we've said that, and we would be further on for a start.
That's just an aspiration. I'm trying to work out in what substantive way would it be differ?
Okay.
No, after the transition.
Okay, but to get to there, you need to have transition. Now, at the moment, we've been very, very clear that we'll be in the single market, in the customs union for that transitional period.
For the whole transition period?
Yes.
So we wouldn't have left?
We would have left, but that would be our transition. The government can't even say that.
Would we still be members of the single market after the transition?
I think that's on the table.
Ah.
It's difficult to see how you can, because we're very mindful about immigration and the commitments we've made on that.
But it might.
So if it was a reformed membership, we're not hung up on exactly the mechanics.
Would we still be members of the customs union after the transition?
We need to be members of a customs union, we believe, in order to protect our trade. And we can't see how you can achieve that without being in a customs union. But whether it's the exact same...
So we could be in the customs union and the single market even after the transition?
We've said keep them on the table, because that's what we need to be negotiating about. The trouble at the moment is...
And what makes you think the Europeans are going to agree to that without all the conditions that come with membership? What on earth would they agree to that?
Well, we think there's mutual interest. Don't you?
Clearly you haven't been following the talks.
Well, the trouble with the talks is we can't even get past phase one, so we're not even talking about trade yet.
We're past phase one on this programme.